Hello. Thank you for having us. My name is Deepak. I have the privilege of working with Dilmer. Many of you guys know Dilmer. I have a background in UGC. I was the founder of the DevRels at Roblox and Fortnite, and now I'm at Meta. And my passion really is wanting to see you guys create amazing things on these platforms. But a lot of things I see missing sometimes is who are you making these experiences for? So that's what we'll dig into for the first part of this talk is what does it mean to design a UGC experience? So these are the topics we'll cover. First, we'll talk about demographics. I don't think enough developers think about this, but you need to think who you're making the experience for. Next, we'll explore how do you create these experiences for social interaction and community engagement. Third, we'll talk about what players in these ecosystems, what do they do creatively inside these games? And then we'll dig deeper and see what type of activities they do in these experiences. And the last one, which is if you take nothing else from the whole entire talk, is what kind of stories does your game or experience create that players will share with others? So let's dig into it. So as I said, one of the crucial questions we have to ask ourselves is who are we making these games for? And see, by sort of identifying the key demographics and their preferences, we can really tailor the experience towards that. And you might not know this, but most UGC players are young people, youth, generally 13 to 24, right? And even on other ecosystems, it's even younger than that. So I want to really dig into what it sort of means to be a youth player and what their sort of demographics are. So 60 to 70% of UGC ecosystems are Gen Alpha or Gen Z, which means they're digitally native and they're highly engaged on online platforms. They love socially minded games, and we'll dig deeper into that. But those are games like Fortnite and Among Us, because they've shown that they're drawn to experiences that do teamwork, communication, and mutual support. And they love this idea of interacting inside the world and outside the world as well. That's why they sort of enjoy platforms like Horizon World, Roblox, Fortnite, and YouTube. So if you notice, there's a huge corollary between YouTube and UGC platforms, and they operate on the same sort of design principles. Whereas there's a creator who's made an experience, and these other players or audiences want to engage with that experience. They also enjoy the act of role-playing and chasing goals. So if you want to look at an adult game, think of World of Warcraft, but the whole idea with that game and say something like Sims is the idea you're role-playing as a character and you're chasing goals. So a lot of games say Destiny borrows from the World of Warcraft framework, where it's oh, I'm going to go do this raid, get this piece of armor, and then people in this world will know I did something special. The same sort of principles apply in Roblox Horizon Worlds is they're looking at you to see what you've accomplished. So your game needs to sort of create those experiences that people can sort of wear what they've done in that world. And they love gameplay that sort of allows them to create their own stories and experiences. So that's why Minecraft and Roblox are so huge, because it allows you to experiment within that world. So my joke is you're sort of designed on two meta levels, right? You're creating your experience and you're trying to make sure that the people playing in those experiences are creating within that experience. So it creates not just sort of a one-dimensional game, but a two-dimensional game. Because then that's when they go on the playground and say oh, this is, what did you do in this game? And Dilmer will say, I did this. And if your game did the trick, the other kid will say, I did something else, and this is what happened. And so storytelling is key to that type of development. They're also drawn to building and participating in communities. Me and Jake, another developer advocate, we are at VidCon. And the most amazing thing, you have these huge influencers and YouTubers out there. And the biggest crowd was for Gorilla Tag. And you had people with 20, 40, 60 million followers, and they're all hyped about Gorilla Tag. And that's because that game creates two things, right? Creates interaction inside the game and outside the game. So, oh, sorry, I went all the way to the end. So I want to look at like things like Gorilla Tag, which I think is like a socially minded game. So I know a lot of you guys have asked this question of like, in order to understand socially minded games, we need to sort of look at a broad stroke of like what other games are in this ecosystem. So youth games I often describe as like, they allow you to connect, collaborate, and see other players in the games and build community. So unlike traditional AAA games that may focus on single-player experiences, these games sort of focus on social interaction, teamwork, and sandbox gameplay. They're generally played on mobile devices, tablets, and VR headsets. So even though we're thinking mobile games, right, there's actual other mobile games. So my friend is the game director on Marvel Snap. So what is so good about those games is they're quick, they're solo, they're on the play, usually a 2D interface. So you're not trying to make those types of games on Horizon Worlds. You can. I've seen some good concepts of them. But it's not socially interactive. Those games are focused on deep progression systems, whereas youth games are focused on connecting with others, collaborating, and it's more of a social experience as opposed to a solo experience you might have with Pokemon Go and those types of things. Another category which everyone likes to make is hardcore games. These are your Call of Duties or your Dotas. These are very competitive, high gameplay focused games. And this only is like 12% of the market. Even though people think this is the biggest part of the market, most of the market is actually playing youth games. And the last category is indie games, which are things you'll see on Steam. They have a lot of similarities with youth games, but the idea is that they're a little more narratively focused, usually also made with smaller teams, but don't necessarily always have the social interaction. Sometimes you do see those individual darlings like Stardew Valley when they added the multiplayer update, but the idea is like youth games create this other branch of games where people are looking for connection. And you can start to already see that in the VR space. Like I often hear this question of like, why did Gorilla Tag or like Animal Company take off? It's because their foundation is a youth game. And again, youth game is like, what is a youth game? They're letting you collaborate, you can move freely, they're interacting with their friends, right? And that's sort of different from these other spaces. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of people gravitate. That's why those apps have blown up. It's because that's where the market is. So the more we sort of realize that that's who we're developing for, the more you can tailor your experiences. So I want to dig a little deeper of like, what are the actual attributes of a socially minded game? So again, young players love meeting other players or NPCs. I've worked with a lot of creators, and often like I will count how long it takes me to meet another player or NPC. Sometimes that's hard because if you're a new developer, there's no one coming to your game. But that's where you have to get creative as a developer to start building those experiences, even if it's with a bot. Because the idea is that kid is looking for interaction. They also love working together, right? So that's why Gorilla Tag is so great, is because you're working with other people to move across the map or try to get up into the trees. Like, they like this sense of collaboration. Even if you look at the YouTube space, those audience members and the YouTubers, influencers, they're trying to engage with that creator, and they're creating that same type of collaboration, whether they realize it or not. The other thing is, like, they're not looking for generic or unoriginal titles, which is, I know it's easy to say, but they're looking for experiences that sort of create sort of like original IP and stuff, which is really hard as a developer because that's hard to like, hey, go make your own unique experience. But the idea is that like that's what they're drawn to, right? So like Gorilla Tag or Animal Company might seem random to you, but to that kid, this is like a unique space and a unique world to explore. The other thing is you might not realize is they actually love positive interactions. So meaning that like they love cooperation, they love empathy, they love kindness. So they're not necessarily looking for like intense experiences where there's like a clear winner or a clear loser or a place that creates sort of hostile like environments. They're looking for a place that can be fun competitive, but a space that allows them to sort of like engage with others, get positive reinforcements. They also, this goes back to the other thing, socially minded games like allow you to sort of like create within that space. So the more systems you create to allow them to build in those virtual spaces, that allows them to see themselves as a creator. So that's why like Animal Crossing took off, right? Because you could design your own spaces, express your creativity. That's why Adopt Me on Roblox does so well, is because you're building your house, you're moving your furniture. They love being able to create in a sandbox space. They don't want to be on rails, if that makes sense. And the last thing is like, I don't want to use the word meme-ish, which might not be the right term, but they're looking for a memorable and engaging experience that creates sort of thoughtful gameplay moments, humor, unique mechanics, or cultural references. So an example I have for you is, do many of you know Lethal Company on Steam? That was made by a Roblox creator. So he's taking youth principles and applying to Steam. So it might seem new to these people on Steam, but it's youth principles, it's Roblox principles, it's Horizon principles, which is this like teamwork type game where you're exploring a planet and like, you know, crazy deaths and crazy animations happen. And it might seem sort of random to you, but it's creating these same types of principles. So the next thing is like, okay, so we're building youth games, we're building socially minded games. How do these creators express their creativity in their games? Well, basically, youth players love to explore and discover things in your world. They love when there's a new level, a hidden secret, because that sort of curiosity sparks their creativity as a creator. You might not think that, but to them, they're like engaging with you when they find something new, that you're telling them a secret, and then now they have this secret. And that secret of expressing it is creativity. And that's important to see because they don't see themselves as players. They see themselves also as creators and collaborators. So Grow Your Garden, which, how many people know about that game? You should all know about the game, and that's our case study because that's the biggest game on the planet right now. And we'll talk about metrics about it. But in that game, you can sort of like plant flowers and other gardens and stuff. But what it does so well is allows them to sort of like grow a garden and other people can see your garden. So it creates a sense of accomplishment and pride when they can sort of create and share with others. Another thing like these types of players want to do in your game is like they love customization. So the idea is that like, again, it's the meta thing I always talk about is like when you go into a UGC platform, you put on your outfit. I joke my avatar looks like I'm a Gap model, but then I want to go into another level where I'm customizing my character inside your game. So you're trying to give people the ability to sort of create within that ecosystem. The next one is people love sharing these experiences and getting feedback and collaborating on these new projects. So games that sort of facilitate these new social interactions, they sort of start to see themselves as being part of the project. Because we now live in a consumption culture. So like if your experience is like this linear experience, they're sort of just done with it. But ones that they can sort of like put their selves into your creation is the ones they take back and want to put back stuff into it. So my hope is like you start to see that like your game is more than just this like executable. It's this thing that has its life of its own. So I don't want to get too like philosophical, but like some of the things that I see that people like to express, like young people like to express, is they love to build. So this first one is like a pizza place on Horizon. It does really well. I've seen the pizza place game now on Roblox, Minecraft. Gary's Mods for those of you old enough, and Second Life, right? And so the idea is like, what makes this game so interesting is like they get to build inside the game. So you could just sort of do a pizza simulator, right, where you're just getting pizzas. But if you allow them to build the pizza within that game, it makes it more interactive. The other thing is they love to explore. So like being able to like use sort of like what Horizon offers you or Roblox or these other platforms is they give you sort of like the matchmaking and open world template. And so you as a designer just get to build like sort of a world, and Dilma will go into an example of like going into Mars or like, here's a world to explore. What type of gameplay are you going to add to it? This other one is sharing. Now sharing has multiple levels to it. Sharing means like they love to share in the experience with others. So this one is me and Dilmer and Jake. We're playing a firefighter rescue. And the idea is like, it's not a solo experience, right? This is where I'm actually caught on fire. But the idea is like, now the other player can use their water gun to put the fire out for me, right? It creates this idea like we're in this together. And that's what Gorilla Tag, Animal Company does so well. It's you're a fellow gorilla in this company or something else, and you're not doing it alone. And the next one is sort of customization. This is like a kitty cat like role-playing game, but like the first thing you come to is their store. So it's like 80 sweaters, 80 cat ears, different mugs, and most youth players will spend more time customizing than probably even playing the actual role-playing part of the game. And so these are the types of things you like need to foster in your experience, because that's what they love to do to express themselves. Just like if you had a kid, right? They love drawing on that like piece of paper and then showing to their dad or mom like, hey, look what I made, right? It's that experience they're looking for. It's just happening in a digital world. So the next thing I want to talk about is like the actual activities that people do in these types of games that you've seen also in these top VR games. Is they love things that they sort of see in real life, like interest or roles they see happen. So like Roblox High School, who do you think plays that game mostly? No, middle schoolers, because it's an aspirational system, right? So like what people don't realize is like when they play Roblox High School, it's middle schoolers wanting to role play high schoolers. When they're playing like Adopt Me, it's basically a parenting simulator, right? So they're mimicking what their parents do, right? When I'm playing firefighters, they see like jobs as cops, firefighters, ambulance. Those are the things they love role playing as, right? So they're wanting to have that experience in the digital world because to them, that's the coolest thing in the world. And the next thing they sort of want to do is like have a sense of progression in that system, right? So the more you sort of allow sort of like again, grow your garden, they get to see that flower bloom. And that to them is like some sense of achievement, because for the youth player, they're like looking for that positive reinforcement. I did something happened. Oh my gosh, this happened. I need to share that. So you could just give a flower, but if you get to see it grow, that's what's so impactful for them, because they think they did do something that was impressive to them and they want to share the world. And then another big point for these types of role-playing and game-oriented games that you'll see is they love this idea that they have the freedom to explore in this world. So I'll point to a game like Among Us, right? It sort of encourages you to work together and communicate, but you could also betray. You have this freedom of choice, right, to do something in this world. A lot of games are sometimes, again, on rails, and they're like, you got to do it this way. But if you sort of split up those systems in a way that give them optionality or freedom to explore, like in Gorilla Tag and Animal Company, it creates this level of storytelling that like you can't replicate if it's just a game that you're just scripted in a certain way. So it allows you to create these stories that are what gets shared on the playground. And then you sort of reinforce that with like achievements and milestones. So the more that the kid can see that they're progressing in your system, the more they want to come back because they need to see that flower grow, or they need to see get the armor that they got from their raid, or they need to like, how did they get that character in Fortnite? And it's usually a mix of they bought the skin or they did something to accomplish to get that skin. So this is like one of the top experiences on Horizon World. It's renting an apartment. And so this is me, a grown dude, running around, which I assume with youth players, right? And they're just like role-playing, like what an adult would do. This person showed me their apartment, and I'm like what do you call someone that steals stuff and like hoards it? I just start stealing their stuff, and they're probably trying to show me how cool their apartment is. But this is like, these are the types of experience that resonate with these types of players because they're mimicking what adults would do. And they probably spent a lot of time like positioning their stuff in that game, and I'm messing it up. But that's the story they'll go tell their friend is like, this guy came in, started taking all my stuff while I was trying to go to the school bus over here. And literally a school bus will come pick you up when it's time for school. Again, seems silly to us, but to a kid, they're getting the role play as an adult. This last point is, if you take nothing else away from this talk, is how do your games tell stories that translate into the online world? So if there's one thing you notice with kids, they love to tell what they did to their parents and to their friends and anyone that will listen to them. So like, you see this inclination in kids. So the question you have to ask yourself is like, are you creating a game that tells stories? So like, if your game tells the same story over and over again, your viral growth will like teeter off because it's the same story. I picked up the gun, I did this and shot that target. It needs to be that the next kid says something different when they picked up the gun. Like Dilmer came in the way and stopped something, and then chaos happened. Because that's what people love to learn, is like something different happened in your world. That's the amazing thing sort of about like sandbox games, is because they have emergent gameplay. So when you're creating youth games, it's a lot of focus on systems, right? So the more systems you have, the more it allows for dynamic gameplay to happen inside of a moment. Because that's how sort of Roblox and Minecraft spread so widely, is like they gave you the tools to sort of like create something in one way and another kid to do something different in another way. And then on the playground, literally this is what happened. They would share stories of how that changed every time. And now that we have sort of like social media, you can see things like Wordle, right? Wordle allowed you to sort of like share your progress online. And a lot of these youth games have that same premise. Is like someone can share a GIF of what something happened, and it looks different from, say, like when I'm playing Uncharted. If I throw a GIF out there, it's the same GIF that someone else does. But if you throw a Roblox or Minecraft or Horizon World GIF, Shadi might have something different than what I played, right? She might have tried to actually keep that apartment clean, whereas I am stealing stuff, and that's a different thing to share online. So with the rise of sort of like online communities, it's essential like that your game is like sort of suitable for streaming and sharing online. Again, that's why Gorilla Tag and Animal Company does so well in the VR space, is because influencer will take that game, see that they can create these role-playing stories, chaos is happening, and kids love to eat that up because every time they go into that game, something new happens. So I have an example here. This is Jailbreak, which is like a GTA type game. So all the stories I always heard in the playgrounds is like someone's trying to do a mission, and then someone else in a helicopter stops them while they're trying to do their mission. And this is like the point of emergent gameplay, right? Is like, does your experience create those types of moments? Because I can't replicate this again. If I go back into the server, something else might different happen. So again, how many systems are you putting that creates this type of chaos? Because like you might get slowed down by like how low poly or how unpolished the animations might be. But to the kid, to the youth player, every time they go in, there's chaos happening left and right that you don't even see in like the Call of Duty type games. So now we'll get into the case study, which is Grow Your Garden. So if you don't know, they just set a record of 20.2 million concurrent players. So to give you like a reference, that's one game on Roblox. That's more than Steam combined on a good day. So this is the influencer. I'm trying to show you here the gameplay loop. Basically, they're just getting seeds from the shop. They're going to take that seed and plant it in their garden. But the beauty of this game is you can see other people's gardens. Again, nothing high fidelity about this. But once they plant, that youth player will see something grow and something magical will happen. So again, the gameplay loop here is you buy and plant seeds, you water and care for them, you harvest it, then you use those rewards to buy more plants and seeds or decorate your farm. Again, not a complicated gameplay loop, but this is the biggest game on the planet. So why is it doing well? Well, it's tailored for youth, right? It's a youth socially minded game. You can see other gardens. It creates this expression of building and creating, right? So kids can plant, and to them, they're creating something new. They're role-playing as farmers. And it creates this sort of like emergent gameplay by design because he focuses on live events. So all he has to do is create more seeds that create a different interaction, or create something like random happens where a monster comes when you plant a certain seed. So the whole idea is like it's endless storytelling. It's a loop that you can see things grow and you can interact with others. And so the more you sort of see these insights, you sort of see why youth games are so powerful, because it does something that other mainstream games or other VR experiences don't do, which is like it allows you to create a story that gets shared on the playground or social media. So with that, I'm going to introduce Dilmer to come up and sort of get you into the Horizon editor and how you can make these types of experiences and more.
Wow, I always introduce Deepak as having so much knowledge about Roblox, Fortnite, and he just shares so much great insights. So whenever it comes to like making a game that it has to do with UGC content, I always look up to him and ask him questions. And then funny enough, he was telling me about the Grow Garden. It's a game that I didn't really play before, but one of my kids is actually starting a garden and doing gardening. And he asked me the other day, Dilmer, Dad, can we play Grow Your Garden in Roblox? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll play it. And then I think it was 30 minutes later and I was still playing the game. And then 30 minutes later after that, I kept on playing the game. And then Deepak says, have you heard of that game? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, that's the most popular game. So thank you for sharing that story. Okay, so I'm Dilmer. I'm a developer advocate for Meta. So I know many of you here, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys about Horizon Worlds Desktop Editor. I'm going to be honest, this is something that I started learning in the last 2 to 3 weeks. So for many of you, if you're new to it, don't be afraid. This is going to be something that, I went through that process. I'm going to, just like I do in YouTube, I'm going to go through that same process here and teach you how this tool works. So some of the requirements, and I would look into some of these requirements right now and then get some of these installed before the hackathon start. So if you're going to be using a Mac, that's going to be not supported with this, but you could still do some design if you're going to be pairing up with other people. But it's supported. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so that I can see the slides. But yeah, so you're going to need a Meta Horizon account. You're also going to need to, once you get an account created, probably many of you already have an account with an email. You can do either Facebook or Instagram, and then that's going to allow you to launch the tool and be authenticated to Horizon World desktop editor. And then, like I said, you're going to need a PC, Windows 10 and up. It's going to be required. Intel i4590 and up, and then 8 gigs of RAM as well. And if you're already a developer and you're using a different IDE that is no VS Code, you can still integrate it. You just have to go to the tool, and I'm going to show you how you do that. And then you can point that tool to use that other IDE. So if you're using VS Code, you're pretty much ready to go. That comes with TypeScript. So we recommend that you use version 4.7.4 and you have it installed. And if you're using a different version, it still works. But you can always ask me questions as the hackathon starts. I'm going to be helping around as well. So I'm curious, how many of you have used desktop editor already? Okay, so like 6, 7 of you. Okay, perfect. Well, that's great, because the rest of you are going to learn with me, and I'm going to show you what I learned. Okay, so desktop editor, I'm going to go through a quick UI tour and do a live demo. We're going to be basically looking at my worlds, some of the different worlds that are already shared with me from other participants. So if you guys are creating a world right now, you can pretty much share that with other people. So the idea is that you can build a world and then have other people help you through the creation of that world. So we're going to be looking at tutorials and templates that are available as part of the tool. This is very similar in Unity, how you have like the templates and you can select VR Core versus AR Foundation and all the different templates that you have available in Unity. And then we're going to go through the basics, desktop editor, the hierarchy, and what the player span point is, and how you can change the camera views for the player when it shows up on the actual desktop editor. And then properties for those of you who know Unity Inspector, that's what property is going to be in the desktop editor. And again, camera modes such as a third-person camera versus a first-person camera. And then there's also a really cool camera that I'm going to show you how to use, which is the follow camera. And then, yeah, and then the console and asset library. The asset library is pretty cool that we just announced that, and it allows you to use, there's Gen AI models that you can generate, and you can also share those with other people. There's a big library there that you guys can use through the hackathon. So you guys ready? Okay. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull desktop editor, and this is not a pre-recorded video, so I'm gonna do a live demo here, so bear with me. So this is what you have, the worlds desktop editor, and your worlds, these are the worlds that are already created. This is the one that I've been working on, and it's the one that Deepak introduced you to. Then I really recommend looking at these tutorials because they'll walk you through how to implement different systems. There is one in here that allows you to detect how to actually capture different game states. How do you go about doing that in TypeScript? So yeah, go through those. These are really, really helpful. And then let's go ahead and let me show you how we can create a new one. So if you need to create a new one, you can go in here and then just create a new world. And this is going to require that you have internet connection. So if you're used to using Unity offline or other game engines offline, this is going to be a little bit different because this is all in the cloud. So yep, we see desktop editor here, and it's going to open in just a minute. But the idea is that we're going to be creating a world that we can make available for mobile, for VR, and also for PC. So if we go in here, this is the desktop editor, and we have a world that is already created. So a couple of things that we can see is we have a span point. So if you select that, if you guys want to follow along, let me know. I can slow down. If not, I'll just keep going. But yeah, you can ask me later as well. But just select the span point and then hit F. So once you hit F, this is basically like it's the avatar. So that's going to be the location that your avatar is going to be positioned on. You see right here, this is basically an icon of myself, right? So this tool, I'm logged in, I'm authenticated, I have a Meta Horizon account. So that is the representation of me. So if I were to hit play, I haven't done any coding, I can just do that. And now I have basically a fully working game. I mean, there's not much going on in there other than my avatar there with my hat, because I always use a hat. And then I can go around here with my mouse. And I'm using W on the keyboard. If I do A, I can go to the left. If I do D, I can go to the right. And then there's also other options in here. If I want to stop the game from playing, I can just hit escape. And then as soon as I hit escape, then I get control of my mouse, and then I can basically keep doing other things. So if I want to, for instance, hit play and then focus on the actual span point, let me go back in here. And okay, so the options on the left side, it's going to be your hierarchy. So that's where all your objects are going to be located. So you also have what's called building tools, which is this area right here. So if you want to create shapes, like primitive shapes, they're going to be here. So I can go in here and then just basically add, I want to add a sphere. I'll just maybe put it right there. And then you have your property window in here that I can say, well, you know what? I want to change that to a 0 here. And then maybe I want to scale it. So you can do 2 and then a 2 and a 2. And let me do another 2. Okay. But the idea is that you can also use the gizmos in here. So if you're familiar with gizmos in the other game engines, you have the select, you have this one that you can grab in here and basically move it multiple directions. I can also, rotate it if I wanted to. You can also use your keyboard. So if I do W, I can go back to that mode. You also have like local. So if you're looking at, different local space versus world space, you can do that. These are pretty helpful too, and they are pretty basic, but the more that your worlds keep growing, the more controls that you have, the more freedom, the better designs that you're going to be able to create. So we have, like, if you wanted to, for instance, if I go here, let me just make that a little bit better because it's bothering me. So let me just go ahead and set that to a 2. And then we can just go ahead and maybe just move it up a little bit. Okay, so but if I wanted to snap it and do a snap rotation, all I have to do is activate that, and maybe I want to do 45 degrees on the actual rotation, and then go ahead and press E. And now when I do a rotation, it's going to do, in 45 increments. So that's what that one does. And then this one as well is going to do a scale snap, and you can change the percentage depending on what you want. And then another thing that you can do though is I can use the arrows on my actual computer. And this allows me to go through the world without having to use my mouse. So if you want to change the speed of that, I can go in here and I can say, I want to make this a little bit bigger, make it a little bit faster. So now I can move through my huge world that I'm designing with all these NPCs and these beautiful mountains, which I'm going to show you a world that was generated that way, that has a lot of Gen AI and a lot of beautiful mountains. So these are some of the main controls that you have in here as well. Then on the very top, you have different options, like I said, for the user. If you want to invite somebody else, if you want to do and create in VR, you can also create in VR. And then Gen AI is only available in United States, Canada, and also UK. So unfortunately for right now where we are, it's not available. I can still show you how it works, but the account is to be created in one of those countries before you can actually use it. So let's show you that here in a bit. Okay, so we have these different shapes that you can create. So if I go back in here, there is also something called gizmos. And this is was very confusing to me when learning it, because a gizmo in Unity, it's basically a handle. So in this case, these are different systems that you can use when you're creating a game. So if you want to create a trigger zone, if you want to create a mirror, if you want to add text, so there are different components in here that you can use, like an NPC, also a shop. If you guys want to do a shop for some of your hacks that you're going to be working on, the projects, then you can do that as well. So let me go ahead and see what else we have. And then we have colliders, empty objects, and sub-level. So the other part that is really important about the IDE, so we have our editor view here, and then these controls are really, really cool. And even though I don't have a lot going on in there because I'm using one hand, I'm going to show you how cool this is. So if I go here, and let's say that you want to preview. So right now I'm previewing it basically on desktop. So if I wanted to change this to be, I want to preview this on mobile. So I'm going to select mobile. And then I can select, it's basically going to simulate either iOS or Samsung Galaxy. So I'm going to go ahead and do iOS. and then I can go ahead and hit play. And now it's going to basically simulate that window. So very similar to what you would do if you're doing Xcode development. You're going to get a simulated window of the device that you're targeting. And this is helpful because when you start laying out your UI, you want to make sure that things fit okay, that you're accounting for a mobile-friendly experience. So if we go back in here, and let's see if I can stop it, and hit escape. And we go back in here. So I also can do, if I wanted to do mobile specifically, web specifically, I can do that and then hit. And now that's going to give you kind of an edge, a little bit of a gap on the left and right edge. And that just gives you that functionality to test on different viewports. Okay, so let me go ahead and go back. All right, so the next thing that I want to show you, though, is the asset library. We briefly talk a little bit about it, but these are different assets that you guys can use. And these are all the things that the community is currently sharing. So if I were to look in here and say, you know what, I want to constrain these based on, so I think I can do, I added some of these ones today, and I can filter, and then I want to know which assets I have created personally. And these are assets that I already share to all of you. And then I can say, you know what, I want to see which assets Dilmer has. So if you guys are basically importing assets, and these are assets that you have the license for, that you want to share as well through the asset library, you can do that. So in here I have like different assets that I can select. So I'll show you how we can basically create an experience with these different assets. So what I'm going to do here is I go ahead and hit escape. And then, and then you have your console, which is, you're very familiar with that. And just if you want to do console logs, and which is probably not a good practice to have that many when you're doing developing, but they're going to show up in here. And this one has two different views. There's a status view and also a simulation view. The status view is going to give you more of status of what's happening with the client and the server. And then the other one is going to be what's happening with your console logs. Okay, so let me go ahead and hit stop in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and rename this world. So what I'm gonna do here is, let's go ahead and rename it, and I'm gonna call this one, I'm gonna say DV space and then Mars. And I'm gonna say experience and tests. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and say save. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a Mars. So talk about being able to explore a different world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go into my asset library here, and we're going to do what I just did again. I'm going to go ahead into creator, and then I'm going to say, well, Dilmer V, and then I'm going to select that. So now we can see here that I have, so I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop, maybe select the Mars terrain and then drop it in place. And then, so right now it's like super, super small, but we'll make it a lot larger. So I'm going to make it, so this is also the unit, it's going to be meters. So I'm going to make it maybe about 40 meters. Go ahead and do that. And then 40. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the mic here so I can actually type. Okay. Let me see. There we go. Okay. Do we have a Bluetooth mic? Okay. Let me just do this. Okay. Okay, it's like really hard to type and talk. But here you have the terrain. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is if I go to the span point, is remember that we had the character in the center, basically at the pivot point. So you can drag the character and put it anywhere you want from your terrain. And if I were to place it there, let me go ahead and get rid of this. We'll make this pretty. So I'll just delete that. And then I think the X, and so actually the 0, 0, and then 0. And then we'll bring it up a little bit so that it's above the grid, which won't actually show but there we go, my OCD is gonna bother me, so I'm gonna put it right there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. So now we have basically, I mean, it's not much, but we have a mesh where we can start looking around, and I can, if I hit shift, I can actually run as well. So now I'm gonna go ahead and hit escape. And remember that we had the simulated as web, so I'm gonna change that back to none so that we can get the entire resolution. So the next thing that I'm gonna do though is, well, I want to place, and no, this is not likely that it's gonna place, that it's gonna have a shuttle that goes to Mars. More likely it's a Starship, but I picked this model as a demo. So this was generated with AI, and it's basically let me go ahead and go here. It's basically a shuttle that I can position here, and I'll just put it as 0. Maybe get closer. And I'm just gonna actually make it 30, and then 30, and 30, okay. And I'm gonna put it, okay, just gonna go ahead and hit play. And yeah, this character is like, let me go back. But you get the idea. You can start, I'll show you a finished version of this where I had like multiple hands to do this. And you can start exploring with this. And it has colliders, right? Like that. If I were to get closer to it, I cannot get through it because there are colliders that are already built into this model. So if I go into, click on play mode and then select it, you're gonna see that there's different options in here in the inspector that we were talking about. So you have here the behaviors, you have a collide. So if I were to uncheck this, then I'm gonna be able to go through the actual model. So what I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna go ahead and go back to my creation, and I'm gonna go ahead and leave this world. And I'm gonna show you a finished world. Basically that world where I spent some time making it a little bit nicer, which is this one right here, and then we'll go through the actual implementation. So just let it load. So what I did when this loads is you're gonna see that I have like alien plants, I have a spaceship that I added, and then also there's something called a trigger, and that trigger allows you to basically execute, it'll give you a callback whenever the player enters that specific area. So if I go back in here, so this is where we started, and then we have the Mars ground and other things. I'm gonna go ahead and go here. So this is what we have in here. We have another model that was also generated with AI, and then my trigger collider here, the activator, that actually has a music, basically a sound component that I added whenever I enter that area. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. And I also added background music, so if you hit escaping here, if you look at the components in here in my hierarchy, you can have, in this case, I have an alien signal whenever I'm within the boundaries of the plan. I also have one for the basically when I'm closer to that, the actual shuttle. So if I go and move, so you're gonna start hearing, so I'm gonna run. So this one is, and there's also a pop-up in there that you can also, that is going to be activated as soon as I am within the actual area. And I can go back in here, and but yeah, nothing super crazy. So how does the trigger work? And I'm gonna show you here. If you look at so if you wanted to create a trigger, all you have to do is you go to build, and then gizmos, and you create a trigger zone, and that's very similar to creating a collider in Unity with on trigger action and binding into some of those. So the way that this one works is there is a TypeScript in here that I added. So because we have a trigger component, whenever I try to add an actual script, it told me that I needed to create a component that was based on that trigger. So let's show you if I go here to the actual script and hit open. And so in the Unity area, we know we create a mono behavior, right? And in a mono behavior, you have like the life cycle. So this is very similar to that, except that it's using TypeScript. So you're gonna be using TypeScript to implement your behaviors within the actual desktop editor. So you give it a name in this case, and then there's a component that it's going to be created for it. So type of means that there's gonna be a component of that type. Then your variables, these are going to be the ones that are exposed through your, in this case, through your properties. So I'm specifying the font size, also the pop-up message, and then the sound that I want to play whenever I get into that area. And then you also have your star and then your pre-start. So this is going to be like the awake method, right, in Unity. And then this one is going to be a star maps to the same thing. And then because we're dealing with the multiplayer game by nature, so there's already multiplayer features that are part of it, you need to work with asynchronous programming. So they have this idea of connect co-block event. And this is how you can execute some of these methods asynchronously. But the way that it works is I have to pass in an entity. In this case, the entity is the actual object that I am referencing with this script. And then I also have to specify, okay, what is it that I'm listening to? So on trigger, on player enter, I want to know when the player is entering that area. And then whenever that happens, it's going to be the callback. So I'm binding basically this object to the callback. And then the console log is the first thing that I ended up doing. So I have a player with the interpolation here, and then I get the player's name, enter that area. And then you're going to specify all the different options in here as well. A little larger? Okay. There we go. Is that better? Okay, perfect. Okay, so yep. So you have your property definitions that are in here, then your pre-start method, which is going to be binding to the different lifecycle events. And then you also have the actual callback that is going to be passing in the player. And then I'm specifying here, I'm basically doing a console.log and then what the player name is. And then the pop-up that you see, we have a lot of different APIs as part of Horizon. So if you look in here, the import is specifying a lot of different things, and this is how you can bring in different functionality for your experience in TypeScript. So here I'm saying, well, you know what, I'm accessing Horizon Core, and I want to get property types because that's how you define what those are, so that they show on the actual script properties. And then pop-up option is something else also that we have as part of the SDK. And then we have player because we need to basically bring in the player, and then all these other ones as well. Audio gizmo, it was one that I needed to be able to play the sound. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically showing a pop-up for that player. I'm specifying, well, what player is it? So here's a player because that's one of the arguments that this script. I'm using also VS Code, and there's full IntelliSense in here. So if I were to see if I can type in a period here, you're going to see that it shows you what options are available. And then I also specify, okay, what the message is going to be. So I could say something like the shuttle shouldn't be getting this far from Mars, maybe the Starship or some type of a message that matches your story. And then here it's the timeout when the pop-up is going to be dismissed, and then the options as far as like the look and feel of the pop-up. I mean, this is a very simple implementation. There's a lot more that you can do here with custom UI. And then I'm saying, well, if the sound is being specified, then I'm going to get the audio gizmo, and then I'm going to play that audio that I passed in. And then, yep, and then on trigger exit, it's just displaying that information. All right, so let's go back into here. So I'm gonna go back to the slide. Any questions so far? Did I go too fast on some of that explanation? Okay, go ahead. You can specify complex assets. I would still run it on your phone, run it on different devices just to see how it's performing. But yeah, I'll send you some documentation on vertices count and what is recommended. I know we post that on the website. But for the most part, you should be able to bring in an FBX file and then use it in your game. Yep, go ahead. You have control of the movement. You do have control of the player movement. So if you want to attach different components, in that case, you could change the gravity of the player. And we had an example where we did like an aquarium where the gravity changed when the person was inside the aquarium. So does that answer your question? Or?
I think that would have impact all of the players simultaneously, but could you add like a jetpack to one of the players that he could launch himself?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if they're restricted with importing your custom animations, right now you can, but yeah, Deepak is right. They're working on it. Yep.
We are using TypeScript, so can I use npm install something, or can I add more dependency of the libraries that I love to use?
I believe you can use TypeScript as long as as it compiles to JavaScript and it doesn't access other different resources. So do you have a specific one that you're thinking about using?
Not yet. Most likely maybe a math library or something like that.
I believe you should be able to, yeah.
Can I ask a second question?
Sure.
Second question. Damn it, it's gone. Yeah.
Thanks. Is there a way to create a Horizon world in pass-through?
Is there a way to create so you mean like mixed reality?
In mixed reality.
Yeah, so we got that question a lot when I went to Reboot, and we do have some demos where people are using mixed reality with Horizon worlds, but it's still internal, so it's on the Horizon.
Horizon. Yeah.
Meta Horizon, but it hasn't been pushed to developers yet. But I know developers and designers inside of Meta that really, really want to get that to developers.
Awesome, thank you.
Great question.
Now I remember. Can I run npx tsc directly on the file and get these sweet little type errors directly in the terminal to then pass it to my code editor directly?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'll get back to you. Yeah,
thanks.
That's a great question.
Can we use Gaussian splats or NERFs, nerves in the Horizon world? Gaussian splats, the photogrammetry thing.
I haven't seen anything like that yet being imported. So yeah, I don't believe that's available right now.
Okay, thanks.
If you have pass-through mode, do you have templates about glasses, some kind of Google new type of glasses, or so can I use it as more breakthrough? So Shapes I can use as a prototyping tool in virtual reality. Can I use this tool as a code kind of prototyping tool for all type of glasses?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's something that I didn't show you. It's a VR tool as part of Horizon Worlds, and it allows you to basically create code blocks. You go into the experience and you can create this flow with basically visual components that allow you to do different logic. It's not like getting more support, but it's not getting deprecated. So it's still available in there. So just go into the Horizon Worlds and then VR tool, and you're going to be able to find it. So you should be able to do prototyping in there as well. Yep.
You control the character with keyboard, and I assume it's possible to control it with touch. Are there other modalities that we could use, hand gestures, voice input, or even the pen?
With Horizon Worlds specifically?
Yes.
I don't believe so. I think it's just VR and then keyboards and then mobile.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, we'll add that to our to-do list. Feedback to internal developers. Thank you.
Coming from someone who's been focused on VR, I was positively surprised by how easy it is to make stuff for basically platform independency, so for mobile and for web. Can you say anything to, I guess, the market distribution or the user distribution between people who are accessing Horizon Worlds via VR versus on mobile or web? And maybe what direction that's going in?
No, we were just talking about that same question. And yeah, I think, I mean, I couldn't show you exactly the power of this. I mean, I'm an XR developer and I come from doing mixed reality and hardcore stuff. And then, I mean, I was using one hand, but there's a lot of things that you can do here. And I see it as a great way to introduce those players that you don't have right now. So Horizon Worlds, you can, and then you can have it available on mobile. Like it's super, super easy to, so if you want to push that experience, all I have to say is push. And then it'll send a notification to my phone on the Meta Horizon app. And then I'll get a notification there and I press it. It takes me to that world. So there's no really big deployment effort. It's available on multiple devices all at once with just simple toggles. So there's a lot of opportunity for, you know, getting a bigger pool of developers or of users into your experiences.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you manage to run it on Mac through Parallels or something like that? Or are you working on a web version of Horizon?
Yeah, that's a great question. The only version that works right now is on, it's on Windows. You could create on VR, but I think that's still very limited and not supported long term. So for now, I would say it's similar to XR. You have MetaLink on when you're using Unity, but you don't really get some of that functionality on, you know, on a Mac. Go for it.
Using TypeScript as a new language, probably to so many, what would you recommend as some documentation maybe, or how would you suggest people approach getting into this new language?
Yeah, we have great documentation, and I'm going to share the slide at the very end that has QR codes, and there are scripting documentation of basically how to create variables, loops, how to create different components instead of a mono behavior. So we have a lot. What I would say is just create something that you're like you really want to create that is small enough that can teach you the language. So it's just like with any language, once you know one, like jump into another one, it's pretty straightforward. Just create a small project. That always helps.
I'm not as familiar with TypeScript, so I've been taking Coursera classes. So, but I know we are looking into creating education around TypeScript.
This type of prototyping tool is about single player or multiplayer?
It's multiplayer. So that's the beauty about using desktop editor with Horizon Worlds, is because out of the box it's multiplayer. And if I create an experience right now and I send you a link to everybody here and you have an account, the users, their avatars are going to show up automatically.
And can I prototype something like Ekran game where one or two guys can play via my mobile device and the other guy can play in a headset?
Yeah, that is supported.
That's how me and Dilmer often play.
Yeah.
I play on my mobile and he plays on his headset.
Yeah, we did a live show. So we have a new YouTube channel, which is called Pixel Pushers. And the game that Deepak was showing you there, which is Fire Rescue, there were 4 of us playing. So some of us are basically wearing a headset. Some of us are in mobile. So that's the beauty of this, is you can be on web, mobile, and also on VR.
Nice, cool.
One thing I'll point out is, like, say if Dilmer hit publish, just to reinforce this, it's instantly a multiplayer game.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is get the link out there. So that, just like Roblox, Roblox and Fortnite, it's you don't have to worry about the networking.
Yep.
I'm curious, what sets this engine apart from other engines that are out there?
What sets it apart for other engines? To me, it's how early it is. It's like in the iPhone days when the iPhone came out, it was so new and the early adopters jumped in and started doing they made a lot of great things and grew really, really fast. So I think it's where it is right now. It's going to keep improving. And if we look at all the devices that we have at Meta and the ecosystem, and you look at Facebook and you look at, all the Instagram, all the family of apps, that's where the huge opportunity comes in for somebody, that is starting a company. I think that's where the value is.
To add on to that, I started at Roblox and Fortnite when they were smaller, and a lot of the successful creators there were first to market. So they weren't necessarily better than anyone else. So the idea here with Horizon is we're early on. So this is the perfect time to jump into that type of space. But I think what differentiates us from, say, Roblox and Fortnite and Minecraft is me and Dilmer, I think MR is the future. Again, I'm 10, 20 years. Dilmer's next day. But the idea is I think the space that youth players will be looking for is that like the pass-through question, right? It's going to be a little bit of that virtual world and mixed reality, and you get to play with that in this space. And I think just to reinforce Dilmer's point is one of the biggest struggles for any developer or creator is how do I get my game played? So we can't talk about it right now, but we have some cool features coming where we're connecting to the family of apps. So now your game can have a ton more exposure. But again, I can't say too much because my boss is there. You guys need to tell us those, be loud and vocal, and then we go wine to engineering. And then if we hear enough of that, then that's what gets those features integrated. Because I think the future for Horizon is that kind of the kid goes to school, is playing on their mobile phone, gets home, they put on the headset, and they're doing the tracking and everything.
Or built-in Gen AI comedy.
That's another level, yes. When they're starting, because you can sort of see that already happen on YouTube, right? Creators are hey, they do it with simple things like music, hey, insert your track in here, we'll make music together. I think that's when you go into those worlds and the creator is doing that through Gen AI, and then the player is doing that on another level. Let me create a warp gun, creates a portal, right? That to me is the exciting part in the future.
I saw a lot of macro interactions, so big colliders walking in. What about micro interactions like small hand menus, interacting with UIs in front of you and transporting it between these platforms? Like in VR in front of you, you have a lot of space, and on your phone, you don't. Do you have solutions for that, or is that not intended?
I'll be very transparent. It's not as clean cut. Say if you were making a mobile 2D interface game and you put the UI right in front of you, and then you went onto desktop or VR, you could see the legs dangling because you put the UI in front of it. So I think we can do a better job of that. But it is possible. It's just not as fluid and polished. But a lot of the interactions, like Dilma was saying, are taken care of, when you're shooting or doing a button press. And I think we introduced a new feature recently to make it easier to do pop-ups in areas. I have to look that up.
I had a question just about networked objects. Are objects automatically synchronized across all of them, or do you have to add special components? And then the second part of that is, do you have control over how the synchronization works? So for instance, if I wanted to throw a ball to another player, it would have to be really high fidelity movement versus if I'm just placing a block that's just sharing a position.
Yeah, the networking part, it's already taken care for you. The synchronization happens. If I throw a ball, the other player is gonna see the ball. There are some changes on the inspector that you have to make on the ball if you wanted to have less latency. And that's something that I didn't cover, but you do have some control over that. I can show you some of the documentation maybe here after the talk.
Thank you so much, Dilmer. Thank you, Deepak, for this amazing workshop. Thank you everyone for attending also. I hope you found this really useful. And feel free to also reach out to Deepak and Dilmer about extra questions after this.
Yeah, let me put the QR codes in front. Let me just really quick, take this basic Mars experience and add a full gameplay loop. So whatever I show you that I did with one hand, just take it to the next level. That's what you guys are here for. I know you guys are gonna make something amazing.
Add the garden loop to add Mars, and you might have the #1 game in the world.
Yeah. And then if you're not in, I mean, right now this is supported in other countries. So I just wanted to put that out. Like if you guys want to test Gen AI, it's really, really cool. I use it for some of the things that I was building. And if we go, I want to show you the Shadi. Shadi, you want to talk about the programs? Okay.
Sure. I can talk from here. Hi, everyone. I'm Shadi. Nice to meet you all. I lead the growth team at Meta. And let's give it up for Dilmer and Deepak, who are on my team, who shared so much with you. Thank you, guys. I'm really excited to be here. I love all the questions. I'm excited to chat with all of you throughout the week and just hear more about what is interesting to you. Dilmer, if you want to go to the next slide, I just want to talk about how much Meta is investing in Horizon Worlds, in MR. We are not only putting a lot of money into both of these areas, but also we are putting a lot of manpower and teams, as you can see by these two amazing gentlemen here, and another one, Jake, who will join us throughout the week. But on the Horizon World side, we recently launched a $50 million creator fund. We are hosting monthly competitions with $1 million prize pools, a lot of opportunities to come in, to explore, to build, to develop, and to make money. We have accelerator programs. We have our MHCP program, which is essentially our community. It allows you to come in, to go and join webinars, to learn from our community leaders, to learn from our developer advocates, and just to kind of continue to grow and find new monetization opportunities. And then we'll be, hosting a bunch of really cool events throughout the end of the year. And then on the MR side, similarly, we have our START program. Again, engage with the community, learn from Meta employees, Meta community members, and other people who are building within the MR world, as well as many other events and hackathons that we're going to be doing throughout the year. So come ask us about it. In the next slide, there's some QR codes that you guys can scan and learn more and join some of these programs. And again, we are really, really leaning into the work here in both Horizon Worlds and on the MR front. And we really want to have you all kind of engage and, build with us. And we're excited to be here, and we're going to be here all week, and come chat with us. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys.